So, what happens when a country gets, well, a little too comfortable, when it loses its edge? Today, we're going to break down a really thought provoking take from business leader Ho Kwon Ping on where Singapore is headed in this super uncertain world. All right, let's just jump right in, because Ho Kwon Ping starts with a pretty bold observation. He says that when Singaporeans travel, they get a reputation. Not for being rude, not for being violent, but for being, well, world-class complainers. Really hard to please, always pointing out what's wrong. So what's up with that? And more importantly, what could a seemingly small thing like that tell us about a whole national mindset? And here's where it gets really interesting. Ho links this whole complainer thing to something you might not expect, a lack of what he calls cultural intelligence. The argument is, it's not just about having high standards. It's more about a kind of inflexibility, a deep down belief that the way things are done in Singapore, that's the best way, maybe even the only way.
But, okay, this isn't just about how people act on vacation. Hong argues it's a symptom of a much, much deeper shift that's happening back home, right inside Singaporean society.
See, he says that the original egalitarian spirit of Singapore is starting to fade. Now, that doesn't mean everyone was equal, not at all. It was more about a culture where the super rich didn't, flaunt it. Back in the day, a billionaire might drive a Mercedes, not a Rolls Royce, just to blend in. But now, that's changing. You see a lot more of that flashy, conspicuous wealth. So the big question is, why? What's causing this? Well, Ho's point is that this isn't some kind of moral failure. It's actually a side effect of Singapore's incredible success. Think about it. The economy shifted from making things to managing money. You've got new generations inheriting wealth who never knew the tough times. And because Singapore is such a huge hub for global capital, all this ultra-wealthy culture just flows in. It's a perfect storm that makes extreme wealth a lot more common and, frankly, a lot more visible. Okay, so now let's zoom out. Because this shift inside Singapore, it's happening at the same time as a massive, and I mean massive, reset on the global stage. For more than 200 years, you could say the entire world has basically operated on one default setting, the West. Western civilization was the benchmark, the reference point for, well, pretty much everything. Hull's argument is that that era is coming to a close. With the rise of other massive civilizational powers, especially China, the West is no longer the only game in town. It's no longer the sole reference point. And this is really the heart of the matter. You've got the West and China operating from completely different historical and philosophical playbooks. The West's story is one of outward expansion, conquering new territories. China's story for centuries has been about maintaining stability within its borders. So when you have these two different worldviews, of course you're going to have clashes on big ideas like power, individual rights, and governance. And it totally challenges this long-held assumption that Western values are somehow universal. So what does all this mean for a small country like Singapore, a country that has absolutely thrived under that old Western-led system? How do you navigate this much messier, multipolar world? Well, the answer has to happen on two levels. On the surface, it's all about smart, agile diplomacy. You have to carefully walk that tightrope between the US and China, being a friend to everyone but not locking yourself into being an ally of any single power. But the second part, the deeper level, is a total mindset shift. It's about moving beyond a worldview that's been educated almost entirely by Western ideas. And this is where Singapore has a massive, unique opportunity. Instead of just being a consumer of Western knowledge, it can use its incredibly diverse, multicultural population to become a hub for everything else. Imagine a place where Chinese, Indian, and Islamic civilizational knowledge, and things like medicine, tech, philosophy, isn't just studied, but is actively researched and put into practice. That's a real game changer. But ultimately, Ho argues the biggest threat to Singapore's future isn't China or the US or any external force. No, the biggest danger comes from within. It's the risk of just becoming mediocre. And he makes this really powerful distinction between two kinds of hunger. First, there's hunger in the stomach. That's that raw, primal drive that pushes a country to climb out of poverty. It's incredibly powerful, but it doesn't last forever. Once your belly is full, once your material needs are met, you need something else. You need hunger in the soul. That's a shared vision, a national ambition. And without it, a society starts to drift. It loses its way, and the social fabric itself can begin to unravel. So how do you keep that fire going? How do you cultivate this hunger in the soul? Ha offers his personal philosophy, and it's this fantastic paradox. He calls it ambitious humility. What does that even mean? Well, it's this constant productive tension. On one hand, you have the humility to know just how small and vulnerable you really are, but at the exact same time, you have this fierce ambition to break out, to do something incredible. It's that mix of realism and a relentless drive that keeps you from ever getting complacent. It's what pushes you to always be better.
And that really leaves us with a powerful question, not just for Singapore, but for any successful nation, or even any successful person, really. Once the hunger in the stomach is satisfied, what do you do to feed the hunger in the soul?